Have you heard of a stem cell flare-up? Are you going through one now? Have you had one in the past and you don't want to have it again? Or are you about to get stem cells and you're concerned about preventing flare-ups in the future? In either case, I'm going to be sharing 5 things to do during a stem cell flare-up to help you get back on track and maximize your recovery. My name is Chris Garcia. I'm a leading expert in stem cell recovery. I'm excited to keep you on the road to maximize your health during this recovery process. When we look at flare-ups, stem cells are incredible. Their job is to go in and repair and remodel and create an amazing environment for your body to heal. However, there are times where your body's going to go through a flare-up during this entire recovery process, whether that's at your 4-month mark, your 6-month mark, or your year mark. And I get this question all the time. Chris, how do I manage a flare-up? And most importantly, I don't want it to happen again. How do we prevent these in the future? So I'll go through that in this video. The first thing to do is to communicate this to your recovery specialist. Now, you might have somebody locally that you're working with, and that's fantastic. If they are well-versed in stem cell recovery, help them understand where you are, what you're doing, what went wrong. Let them know so they can time track what just happened. Your recovery specialist, their job is to look at your recovery from a long-term process and then predict and forecast where you're going to have flare-ups based on the activity that you want to get back to. So if you have a flare-up and they didn't see that, that's great. Now we can track it and know what to look for in the future. Now, you have to also understand that this is part of that process. And if you communicate to them, this allows them to help you maximize your recovery down the line. That's the first part. Number 2, when we look at flare-ups, we want you to help understand that you have to be an active participant in this recovery process. And that means that you are also journaling. You're also looking at how to look at that same recovery map. We call it a roadmap. And when we're looking at this, we're trying to see when you're going to have flare-ups and when we can push you just a little bit more. And the more you know, the more independence that you can have. And so your job is to journal during this time, or just make some mental notes. At month 4 I had a flare-up. At month 2 I had a flare-up. Well, that always coincided with when we started to introduce more activity. So maybe we have to introduce activity just a little bit lighter. And ultimately, you understanding your own body and your healing process allows you to not depend on medical professionals, that you can start to predict what's happening to your own body, and that's so powerful. That is our focus as a recovery expert, to help you understand what to do, what to avoid, and most importantly, so you can do that on your own. So step number 1 is communicate that to your recovery specialist. Number 2 is to journal or note when you had that. Number 3 is to understand that these flare-ups can take anywhere from 72 hours up to a week or even 2 weeks. Now, we want to recover as fast as possible. So understand that it's generally about 72 hours. Your body, your history is going to be so unique, so we can't predict that. But do understand this is a general timeline, and how you recover and how well you get out of this flare-up will determine if you are actively trying to reduce the stressors, you're actually not continuing to push further into it, or that your recovery specialist help guide you in the proper process. So if you've let your recovery specialist know from the beginning, that's fantastic. You did that step, you journaled, and you figured out what was the stressor that increased this flare-up. Did you walk too much? Did you spend more time picking up your kids? Did you go to the gym a little too soon? Did you add more weight a little too soon, too fast? Did you add more mileage that you weren't supposed to? So that journaling process is critical to see what caused it. The third part we said was, we know it's going to take about 72 hours. For some people, it does take a week or 2, so don't be frustrated. And that's probably the biggest frustration that I get from clients is why me? Why does this take a little bit longer? And the reality is that everyone's just a little different, and how your stem cells react to you is going to be that. And no one can predict these things, but what you're trying to do is minimize the risks of actually flaring up. And that's all you can do. So the fourth thing to do is gradually increase your activity level back to where you were before. Now, the trouble is we have a lot of clients who, when they have a flare-up and it's fully resolved, they go straight right back to where they were. So for instance, if you were walking 4 miles before your flare-up and you went to 5 miles and that flared you up, so you took 72 hours to calm down, and then after those 72 hours you went right back to the 5 miles, and that's not what you want to do. You want to build back up, because these repeated flare-ups, if you really understand it from a graph model, you're going to do great. You were at 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, and then you dropped for 72 hours, and then you're trying to drop back up for 5. It's going to keep dropping you. And what we're trying to do here is maintain you on a healthy profile where you have gradual improvements with small flare-ups or minimal flare-ups. So these large spikes are only going to set you back. So if you're looking to maximize your recovery, have less flare-ups, and really get through this in the best possible way, you want to reduce these flare-up times and frequency. How many flare-ups you have is going to be great by you journaling and figuring out what your aggravators are, the things that cause these things. So that's going to be the intensity of it, but then the frequency is to prevent these things by knowing those aggravators and not going straight right back into your activity level. So step number 1 is you want to communicate that to your provider. Step number 2, as you navigate this, is going to be a little tough, but you're going to be journaling and notating these things. Number 3 was understanding it's going to take 72 hours minimum, for some people a week or 2. Number 4 is gradually get back into activity with a steady progress. Don't think you're Superman. So if you were doing this before and you had no problems, maybe you were an active individual and you were a high-performing athlete and you're pushing yourself, and that's fantastic. But during this recovery process, Superman doesn't exist. This is your time to slow down. This is your time to recover. You have to understand your body's recovering. So while your brain feels fantastic, you're like, I can push more, your body is telling you that it can't. And that's what a flare-up is. Your body is talking to you and saying, not right now, not yet. Even though your brain feels amazing, the body needs to recover at the rate that it can. So as you explore, you're always just pushing that window just a little bit more. You're exploring with, okay, can I do a little bit more today? Body accepted it, no flare up, great. And you just gradually push at the right rate. That's why you need a recovery specialist, because they know the magnitude that the body can handle. They've been able to see this before, and that's where they're guiding you. After you do all these things, this will help reduce the rate and the frequency of these flare-ups. And number 5, the last thing I can tell you, we've been doing this a long time and we see people get frustrated through this process. The last thing for me is one of the most important, and that's to stay positive. Understand that this is a long-term process. You might have thought this is really going to help you, and it will, but it's not going to be in a week or 2 or a month. These stem cells are coming in and remodeling and helping this tissue grow again like flowers. And you're just creating this environment where it's literally trying to recover everything that you've damaged over the 5, 10, 15, 20 years that you've been struggling with this pain, whether that's chronic pain or a new pain. So as you go through this process, stay positive. Understand this is a 3, 6, 9, 12-month process. And there's things that are predictable that will happen at month 3. At month 6, you'll go in and you'll be feeling great again. Now, if you're going for a second round, that's a different story, and we'll do that on another video. But ultimately, understand at the 3-month mark, it's very predictable, 6, 9, and 12-month mark. Now, if you have these flare-ups, don't let it get you down. They are part of the process. Your job is to minimize how many you're having. And if you're having a lot of them, and it happens to be with your recovery specialist, your physical therapist, it's time to consult with people who've done this for a long period of time, or maybe your body's not responding. In either case, you have to make adjustments with experts. So as we go through this whole process, just remember, communicate with your local provider. Number 2 is journal. Number 3, And understand it's going to take 72 hours for this to calm down. Number 4, gradually introduce. Don't try and be Superman and jump back in. And the last one is stay positive throughout this entire process. We've been doing this for many, many years, and I can tell you these are the best strategies that we give to any client that we see, whether that's in person, whether that's virtual, or whether that's a hybrid model where we're working with your local provider to maximize result. But ultimately, don't let them set you back. It is part of the process, and just know there's a fantastic light at the end of that tunnel in terms of the recovery process to make you feel amazing again and get your life back. And I hope this helps along your journey to recovering after stem cell therapy. Hi, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification for my weekly tips on recovering safely to create long-lasting results after stem cell therapy. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.